is the Roberts Space Industries Polaris, Star Citizen's first ever player flyable capital class warship. Now, of course, there are other ships in-game currently, like the Idris and the Javelin, that players can own as well, but they can't actually fly them yet, not until Squadron 42 actually arrives. So this means the Polaris gets to be the flag bearer of the first proper capital class warship players get in their hands. Welcome, pilots. My name is Hybrid V, and today we're going to be taking a look at the RSI Polaris. Put on your war face, because we're going cap hunting. Clocking in at a whopping 166 meters in length, this thing is big. And for context, an American football field is 110 meters long in comparison. Now just look at the sizes of this thing compared to the Good Doctor map in Star Marine. Yeah, this thing is ginormous. Now, the Polaris is designed to be a long-range patrol corvette, sporting a single capital class size 4 grade A industrial shield, a capital class size 4 grade A civilian power plant, a capital class size 4 grade A civilian cooler, and a size 3 grade A civilian quantum drive, 6 main engines, and 31 maneuvering thrusters. The Polaris is meant to provide support for local militias, aid for civilians in need, and generally provide a long-range patrol presence wherever it roams. Now let's talk the bridge. The bridge of the Polaris features 2 pilot control systems, 2 auxiliary stations, which can also man 2 different remote turret stations, and of course, the captain's chair. A lot of you who follow my channel know that I've been eagerly awaiting proper bridge setups for larger ships for a while now, and while we do have some ships that have captain's chairs now, none of them are actually warships. Now we have a proper bridge crew that can split up roles when running the ship. But I mean, just look at that view outside the bridge. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I love the Polaris's bridge, as it really harkens back to my love of sci-fi and why I'm just such a big fan of warships and multi-crew gameplay in general. I mean, it all really comes back from my love of Star Trek, watching the shows as a kid, and imagining myself being a Starfleet officer of the Federation exploring the galaxy with my crew. And this is why I'm excited to talk about today's sponsor, Star Trek Fleet Command. Star Trek Fleet Command is a PC and mobile game centered around base building, combat, and exploration within the Star Trek universe. And right now they are celebrating their 6th anniversary with an all-new Q Continuum event. You start out in Fleet Command recruiting officers, many of which are famous characters from the Star Trek universe, all of which have various buffs that help you and your crew out during combat and missions. You can also set up your own starbase, which generates resources that you can use to build and upgrade your ships, research new buildings, and upgrade your crew. And of course, you can set out and do missions, helping people in nearby systems, getting into battles, exploring, and looting resources and upgrades along the way, join different factions, and meet other players, and so much more. I've been having a blast with this game right now currently, and right now I'm trying to work on getting the USS Northcutt added to my fleet and build up my starbase, and I'm very happy they reached out to sponsor today's video. So if you've been looking for a Star Trek game, then this will definitely scratch that itch, especially if you enjoy management sims like I do. Currently right now, I am doing a lot of min-maxing of my starbase, so it's got me absolutely hooked. You can use the promo code CRUSHERS to get Beverly and Wesley Crusher as part of your crew, and of course the rare Jellyfish Explorer that you'll get after hitting level 18. Be quick though, as this promo will run from now to January 15th. So if you want to check out the game for yourself, use my link in the description or scan my QR code to download the game either on your mobile device or PC. And don't miss out on the new Q Continuum event. The galaxy needs a leader. Will you answer the call? Alright, back to the show. The Polaris requires a lot of players to man. The pilot controls the ship's movement and also has access to the bow-mounted missile launcher systems. The co-pilot is the communications officer and probably also will be the navigator when route sharing ever becomes a thing in the future. They can take flight controls from the pilot if needed if there's no actual pilot in the pilot seat, and they also control the blast deflectors in the hangar and the hangar doors. They also have a nifty little remote camera that looks inside the hangar as well. The captain has access to 2 MFDs, and that's about it. The captain's job is really to give directions to the crew. Coupled that with an XO, the bridge crew and the captain are meant to actually work together to tame this big beast during combat. The port side auxiliary station is the control station for the remote missile turret on the rear, and the starboard auxiliary station controls the ventral aft remote turret. Sporting a crew complement of 12, which includes 7 gunners, 2 pilots, 1 fire control officer, an XO or engineer, and the captain. The crew required to man it can increase up to about 15 depending on what you want to bring. So for example, if you decide to bring an escort fighter and store it in its hangar, you'll probably want a pilot for that actual fighter, and as well as you may want to consider bringing additional engineers, which will be an important consideration when engineering does arrive well after 4.0. Now, speaking of fighters, the Polaris also sports a small hangar, perfect for escort craft from lights, mediums, and even heavies. It also has a domed-shaped hangar design with an air shield built in, so even tall alien ships like the Santak Yai and the Talon can even squeeze inside. This gives the Polaris a lot more flexibility when it comes to reconnaissance operations, escort duties, offensive capabilities, and just general defense against other fighters. Of course, players have experimented with cramming smaller fighters into the hangar, and while that absolutely is a positive attribute of the Polaris currently, in the future, however, having that many fighters will tax the resources available aboard the ship, as more of the cargo space will need to be dedicated to supporting those craft. So in the long run, it can be used as a pocket carrier, sure, but expect to sacrifice extra torpedoes, onboard ammunition, and fuel to run that fighter wing. The Polaris' main gun is a size 6 dual ballistic cannon, but that's not really its primary offensive weapon. That instead is reserved for its 28 size 10 torpedoes meant for smashing other capital vessels at range. The torpedo bay has a unique loading mechanism for quickly loading in new torpedoes in each tube. This mechanism also makes it easy for the crew to restock ammo reserves from the cargo deck back into the racks. Coupled with its sleek delta profile and those 6 powerful main engines, the Polaris is an excellent fast attacker, able to drop its payload and get out of the hot zone fast. Now, despite its size, it still can easily cut through atmospheric drag with its profile. It also sports small winglets with control surfaces to give it a small amount of control when in atmosphere. It also has very powerful VTOL thrusters along the bottom of the hull to provide additional upward thrust whether in atmosphere or when pulling hard upward in pitch. And those VTOLs on these things are so powerful you can actually hear them ringing through the ship when they're actually active. Now for defense and offense, the Polaris sports 7-man turrets, 7-point defense cannons or PDCs, and while not as powerful as the Perseus' main gun when it comes to engaging capital ships, that dual size 6 ballistic cannon turret can still hold its own against other multi-crew and heavy fighter craft. And the 2-shoulder quad size 4 turret stations can also put the heat on both fighters and other multi-crew ships depending on the loadout you decide to go with. Couple that with the 2 waist turret stations sporting quad size 3 guns, a rear dorsal mounted missile turret, and a rear ventral mounted quad remote turret, and you have a well-rounded wrecking ball designed to punch holes in capital lines with its torpedo spreads. Along with the manned turrets, the 7 PDC stations provide an automated layer of defense against incoming missiles and torpedoes. They also make great short-range defense against smaller craft. Now, their damage output is minimal, just enough to knock down missiles and torpedoes, but not enough really to destroy fighters even with sustained fire. But the added DPS is in addition to the manned turrets, which increases kill efficiency for the crew defending the Polaris. Despite the positives that the PDCs provide to the defense of the Polaris, they also have a severe drawback in that they have their own capacitor pools. Once those pools are dry, they do take some time to replenish like any other laser weapon system. This means that PDC systems can be overwhelmed when under attack. Now, as of publishing this video, the Polaris is sitting just shy of 4 million HP, which means it will take a small fleet to eventually bring this monster down in a fight. Even when completely outnumbered, this thing has a lot of stamina. In our testing in the Forgotten Heralds, the Polaris can still stand and fight for a very long time, even while being rammed by small fighters or even large multi-crew ships, making this patrol craft an incredibly sticky threat on the battlefield. The Polaris also has a large 576 SCU cargo bay, mostly for storing additional torpedoes and supplies both for the crew and the support fighter in the hangar bay. However, as it stands right now, due to how incredibly cheap hydrogen and quantum fuel are, as of publishing this video, and the lack of the ability to rearm ships in the hangar, this pretty much negates these drawbacks currently at the moment. Now, this means that the Polaris for the time being can make an excellent cargo trader since it is extremely hard to kill and can get around quickly and has enormous fuel tanks. This will not be the case if CIG does plan to increase refueling costs in the future, because if they do, this will of course reduce trading profitability for this vessel. Also, you'll want to consider the cost of crew if you plan on sharing your profits from trading with them. And with such a large crew requirement, that alone makes it less attractive than, say, a C2, for example. I mean, it's a warship, it's not designed for cargo hauling, but everybody and their mother loves trying to do unorthodox things with different ships in this game, and inevitably, of course, someone is going to do trading with it. We have tried it. It works. Is it the best? Probably not, but it definitely gets the job done, and it is really hard to kill. So, I mean, there's that consideration, at least until CIG balances things. We'll see. Now, of course, all of this comes with additional drawbacks. For one, this ship is extremely expensive to fix. One of our org members severely damaged their ship with their own torpedoes in their hangar and found that the repair cost to get it back up and running was 1.3 million credits. So yeah, be sure to have some serious cash stashed away in your piggy bank if you plan on using the ship a lot in combat. It does also have the ability to dock, and it's a requirement for many stations since the Polaris is an extra large size vessel. This also subjects it to the numerous bugs that have plagued docking for a long time, including docking alignment HUD issues, spawning issues, and of course so much more that happens whenever the servers start to keel over. And of course, one issue is the general lack of content for this ship to engage in. There are very few missions that suit this ship currently, and the ones that do, such as the Eckhart missions, are bugged. Actually, they've been bugged for a long time, so getting Idris contracts is pretty much a no-go. As well as the automated AI beacons being completely AWOL from the game for a long time, and those were another excellent source of Idris missions, and those I guess are just really not an option right now currently since those are just not available. And I also can't really see ERT bounties being all that fun in this thing since beating up on reclaimers and C2s would probably get very old very quick with this thing. There is of course the new Save Stanton event, which will feature some capital combat, but outside of events, it remains to be seen what type of content this ship will be able to enjoy in the short and long term for the foreseeable future. Another issue to note is its abysmal capacitor size for lasers. Even with max power to weapon systems, the turret systems have very little juice to work with and require long charge cycles for laser weapons. This means that it may be more beneficial to load out ballistics on the ship rather than just lasers, as the lasers can run out very quickly and require a lot of power for those systems to man. This is due to the PDCs also taking a lot of juice from those laser capacitor pools. Now this will probably change with engineering, as engineers may have the option to power down PDCs to give turret systems more capacitor charge, only then powering on the PDCs in an emergency when needing to destroy incoming missiles and torpedoes to avoid burning countermeasure reserves. But probably one of the biggest drawbacks currently for the Polaris, it's not its crew size, not the number of bugs, not the capacitor size or the costs of operations, but instead its biggest issue is actually its own torpedo systems. Now, as of publishing this video, when the Polaris launches its torpedoes, the actual torpedoes themselves can be destroyed right as they leave the tubes, causing massive damage to the Polaris. Combine this with the fact that torpedoes are extremely slow when leaving the tubes, very fragile, and are just in general slow traveling to the target area, and in many cases the Polaris can even keep pace with the initial burn of the torpedoes. This makes them all but useless in frontline combat. And in fact, it puts the Polaris itself in more danger than anything else if you try to even use these torpedoes in an actual scenario where they should be used. For such a fast attack patrol craft, you would expect this thing to charge in at high speeds, drop its payloads before burning away and doing it again. But you simply cannot and should not do that, because under any amount of fire, any stray weapon fire will destroy the torpedo and either damage or destroy the Polaris. And this is even worse when you fire too close to any other capital ship that has automated PDCs. And this even makes dumbfiring torpedoes completely out of the question. If you're traveling way too fast, your ship will generally keep up with the torpedoes. They then can be shot, taking you out in the process. Now, this is a problem for all torpedo boats in the game and has been for a long time. So any bomber such as the Eclipse, the Retaliator, the Gladiator, and even the A1 and A2 suffer from this problem. But this is far more noticeable with the Polaris due to its torpedo base being situated on the bow. This is why I don't recommend ever using the torpedoes in combat currently, as it can really spell disaster. Instead, use them from much further ranges and when not under fire. Now, we'll have to see if CIG plans on rebalancing this problem at all, as it severely limits the capability of its own main weapon systems as it stands now. In my opinion, the torpedo should have a longer arm time once it leaves the tube. During that time, if it gets destroyed while not armed, the torpedo will be mostly inert, doing minimal damage to anything around it. This leaves room for the Polaris to maneuver away, especially if it does a dumbfire spread at close range. But again, we'll have to wait and see what CIG decides to do with this, because currently right now, it's really not a valid weapon platform to use. I recommend for any Polaris owners, if you're under fire, whether it's fighters or other multi-crew ships, do not fire your torpedoes, because again, any stray round that hits the torpedo will severely damage or even knock out your Polaris very quickly. Now, this will probably change eventually. Right now, currently, for example, PDCs are the biggest threat by far to torpedo systems, followed by the manned turret systems as well. Now, right now, currently, we have no ability to actually target PDCs. You can destroy them in combat, but even if you scan the ship, you don't have the ability to actually see them, even when you're using the aim down sights precision mode currently in game. And I think that's going to change eventually. I just think that the PDCs are probably not hooked up into the targeting system quite yet. And when that becomes available, it will be a lot easier to have, for example, fighter, escort craft, and other ships, or even just your main gun on the Polaris to target those PDCs and destroy them before you then go on to using torpedoes. But still, if you're under heavy attack by, say, fighters or whatever, it's really not a good idea to use the torpedoes just because of how slow they are. But like I said, this will probably change. I mean, it has to. It just doesn't work with the current dynamics as is. Now, I have been eagerly awaiting this ship for years. As many of you know who follow my channel, you all know that I'm big fans of multi-crew ships and naval warfare, and now that we finally have a proper warship in players' hands, I am absolutely ecstatic and cannot wait to put this ship through its paces some more with my org, the Forgotten Heralds, as we test out different strategies and tactics to best utilize this beast in combat. And on that note, if you are looking for an organization of your own, the Forgotten Heralds is always recruiting, so if you are wanting to take part in crewing some of these monsters and taking part in some of these battles and tests that we do all the time in our organization, be sure to check out the links below to apply today. So far, I have been genuinely impressed with the ship, as it has met or exceeded my expectations in many ways, with a few caveats such as the torpedoes, but I've already made my case there. So, should you actually get yourself a Polaris? Well, it depends. Running at $750 or your regional equivalent on the pledge store, and a price tag in-game within a few months probably going to be in the 50 million credits or higher mark. The price is pretty steep, and with so little content in the game right now currently to use it for, it can be a difficult sell. So I would say the choice of picking one up is entirely dependent on what you intend to use it for. Obviously, it goes without saying you should not buy this for yourself to fly solo, as it works best with a group you intend to run with, such as an organization. Remember that you can run about 12 players on this, maybe get away with about 8, but to get the most, you will want all spots on the ships filled, and with engineering, you may even want more players. If you cannot find those numbers, then this ship will be all but worthless to you, as you cannot really get the most out of it with a lack of crew. You will want defensive gunners, and you will want players helping you to load and unload cargo and torpedoes. You can run this solo for sure, but you will be shooting yourself in the foot in more ways than one, especially since the pilot station can only control the size 3 bow missiles, and that is it. Now, there's a lot more I can say about this ship, but this video is already going on way too long for that, so instead I will have a walkthrough of the interior of the Polaris that will accompany this video as well. So be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon if you want to get notified when that video does go live. And of course, stay tuned. As you all know, I love putting together videos related to naval combat. And in fact, if you want to learn the basics, be sure to check out my naval combat guide below. The link will be in the description and at the top right of your device right now. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed my review of the RSI Polaris, the North Star of the UAE Navy. If you did indeed enjoy this video, please leave a like, as it really does help out the channel. And of course, if you want to watch more videos like this and much more down the line, be sure to subscribe as well. And do consider becoming a channel member to get access to exclusive content and behind the scenes goodies like these fine folks right here have, whose contributions help me out immensely when putting these big videos like this together. But until next time, folks, fly safe, and I'll see you all in the black.
I know that we're gonna get defeated just by the PDS lost target. Yeah, that's understood. I mean, who rang the?
Got him! Like
that was not intentional.